the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Wyatt,
Here.
Sewell,
Here.
Bunce,
Present.
Lawson.
Here.
Reister is excused absent.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion and second for the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just want to let everybody know that the oaths of office have been administered and signed off by our three consul candidates, Bunn, Sewell, and Wyatt, and also signed by the mayor, so they're officially done. Thanks for your service. Another item, Shop with a Cop is December 6th. If anybody lists, 5th?
Yep, yes.
I can't even read my own handwriting. If anybody wishes to take or provide donations, they're still accepting them at City Hall, just get them to the city clerk's office, and they'll handle them by December 3rd? Okay. Public Works Committee meeting. Looks like Jeff.
That's me. We met on November 10th, 7 a.m. Our first item on the agenda was we had a request from two locations in in Hudson that removed some ash trees. One was 124 Hudson, and the other was two trees off of 128 Jefferson. We reimbursed $300 per tree. That motion was passed 5-0. Second item on our agenda was Mark to present the engineering agreement. We went through that, reviewed what is on there. The total cost of the renewal was $10,000. We moved to pass that, carried 5-0. Third item, we received a letter from a property owner on Dale Drive. Some concerns on the flooding migrations, some of the things that happen north of Hudson. Long discussion on this, reviewed what took place, what changes occurred, what might be going on further north. At the end of the discussion, we came to not moving on this at all and just waiting, I guess, waiting to see where that goes for the future.
Yeah, very heavy cost, Rex.
Yeah. It was a cost that I don't know that the city should invest in.
Just for the study alone, wasn't it like $100,000?
It was over $100,000.
Where did that come from? Just question.
Engineer.
Mark did.
Mark thought it would be that much?
Yeah,
For the
and
study.
the gate system that we would have to put in would be over $1 million.
I think
So
we'll keep going, but
Item 4,
I think there's some.
we talked about the meter change out. There was some talk about trying to replace all the meters in town. We sort of pushed back on that. I think we'll stay with what we've got on the agenda, to change the meters out, and as they expire, we'll put new ones in. Item 5 was sewer adjustments. We had 6, 7 sewer adjustments, all minimal, all were, reasonable causes. We passed that. And the last item was the water sewer rate increase. Rates were going up by 2% based on what Waterloo is doing. We discussed for a while, and motion carried 5-0. And we adjourned.
any questions for Jeff?
Just as a side note, I do think there will be some additional with that floodplain down there. And one thing that we may want to look at is there's been some there was a dike created north of town, which was in that letter.
Yep.
And I think there was a permit given without a study done, an impact study done. So I think that's where the questioning is coming into play. Cause at the time that that dike was done, there was a permit issued by the city without an impact study.
It was
which
done
is
by,
what-
it was issued by the
No.
city as well as approved by the DNR as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did,
So,
and the
yeah.
Army Corps of Engineers, they did the study,
Back then,
yes,
do we have a copy of that still?
yes, I do have a copy of it.
Okay,
We can get
Yeah,
it to the
'cause we-
person who requested.
that's what I'm asking
Okay.
for, is if we
Yeah, we
can get
talked
that
about that.
information out.
And with that
Yeah.
DNR, it was like,
We can get that to him.
Yeah, because I think we have a lot of business owners down that road that are suffering pretty greatly from that flooding.
Well, and that became the whole.
And it's becoming more and more.
Well, it became, there's a lot of discussion we had about it. And there's also businesses, but the challenge here is there's businesses halfway from that dike to Waterloo that are having increased flooding. So it can't be all because of that dike system.
No,
That's the challenge part of
right.
it. So, and when we asked Mark about that, he said, estimate based upon the new requirements they have to go through if they do an analysis, he estimated $100,000 for the engineering study. And if it came back with plans to do it, you'd have to put in a fairly significant system, which he estimated, now, nothing in writing,
Right,
but estimated $1 million to do that, to protect it. We talked a little bit about some just basic, where some of the businesses down there have kind of put their own around and then put some.
but putting their own around is also creating more problems for the other ones.
Right, right.
And
So
we
that's
did
the
send a
challenge.
letter out.
Yeah, we sent a letter out to all the landowners there across from Downdale Drive that anything that was being done that affects the floodplain or the floodway has to get approvals from City Hall. So even bringing in filter,
Yep.
you know. So I don't know what the big answer is to it. I'm
No, but-
challenged with spending $100,000 for a study, especially if it could end up being $1 million expenditure.
But my challenge is saying that we're just gonna stop it and not do anything is my concern with that, because it's, I think you're gonna hear from more business owners down there.
Would you, should we get a formal written proposal from Mark as far as the cost of the study? Would that
That's
help?
I'm not on this committee,
Yeah,
so I'm
yeah,
gonna
no.
put it back to you guys.
Yeah,
Personally, I'd kinda like to hear from the other business owners on Dale Drive, their concerns.
Yeah.
and-
I think you will,
because
yeah.
this was just a single, it'd be nice to hear from more.
Right,
we heard from some of them 4 or 5 years ago, and then it's been kind
and
of
you're,
quiet.
you're
for a
obviously
while.
gonna hear from them when it happens.
Sure.
You know, right now, you're not gonna hear a whole lot when it's
Yeah.
frozen and everything else is going.
Yeah.
You know, but I've heard from others that we've owned this for how many years, and until this year is when it started backing up further into the actual businesses,
Mhm.
which is around the same time a dike was built. So I think that's the concern, because there's some aerial photos that you can go back historically and say it wasn't here this year, but it was here this year. And
Well,
the
I'm
flow
on-
underneath the bridge still being the same, you know, how do you contribute that?
I'm on the north side of that. Since '08, we keep getting water worse and worse every year.
Yeah,
And I'm on the north side of that dike.
right.
So it's
Well,
not
and I think it has
just,
to do with the tiling methods and, you know, where
There's a lot more
everything's coming
runoff.
into play.
right, there's a lot more
More
runoff.
houses are gonna create more runoff and anything else that happens with it, but, no, I think there's some businesses that, and maybe the answer is sending an email out to the businesses to say, hey, we wanna hear from you, you know, as far as what y'all want, you know, because it is a major concern down there, so. And there's some high tax paying business owners that own land around there as well, so I mean, not that, maybe it is just as much as let's follow up and see if there is anything, or put something in writing, but that's up to you guys. I just hate to see it say, we know it's a concern, but we're not gonna do anything about it, you know what I mean? So, again, up to you.
I'll visit with Mark a little bit and see if we can come up with
Yeah.
some, if nothing else, a write-up as far as what his cost estimates
Sure.
would be, so that we can share that with the property
Yeah,
owners.
cause if it's 100,000 and $1 million, obviously that's a different story than if it's, you know, 10,000.
We tried to come up with a $10,000 solution, we weren't successful.
There was nothing there.
The hardest thing to accomplish in this, and Mark touched on it, is where the dike would need to be placed, we would have to get approval from the Army Corps and stuff like that, and those are really, really big hoops to jump through.
Or is there another option other than a dike? You know, is there a floodway that can come out somewhere else that can, you know, the Mosier property, the everything else that we've all kind of all talked about and touched on that could alleviate some of that
It can be
too?
a holding pond for a bit, but when you think about all the water that's been all
Oh,
the way down through
absolutely.
that, it's peanuts
Yeah.
in respect.
So,
I'll talk to Mark and see if he'll
yeah.
put together something just a little bit more.
Obviously not an engineer, and I know there's a Miller Creek watershed study too that goes on, that they talk about all that right
Which
now.
I'm involved in,
Yeah,
as well as
so,
Steve is involved in.
Middle Cedar watershed.
yeah, so that's all.
Okay. Where is we?
Mary.
Mary,
Hi, Mary.
Hello,
your
I'm
annual
back.
report.
with the 2021 Iowa Public Library General Information Survey. And I will just hit out the high points because you can all read and,
Yep.
you know, take your time and go through it later on and get any questions to me that we don't get answered tonight. Iowa Public Libraries have a size code that's on A12 there. And we actually, because of our increased population with the census, just moved up to a size D.
Okay.
So, that doesn't really mean a lot as far as funding or other ramifications. But we did graduate. I think the cutoff line was 2,500 population, so. And then it just has some information, if you move into the B section, about paid staff and salary. We had a little less paid staff yet in this fiscal year. You know, this is FY '21, so it started July 1st, 2020, and through June 30th, 2021, and so this was a COVID year.
Yep, yep.
All a COVID year. I have to kind of gauge everything by that, because
Right.
it affected things so much.
Yeah.
But we did have a little less staff. Our total paid staff at full-time equivalent was 2.63. The year before it was 2.75, but that's because we weren't doing yet after-school programming or much of any other programming, so. And we are currently ramping that back up. It's slow to build, but we hope it will, well, we can get back to the pre-COVID days. We'll see what happens. It has salaries. One of the ones that's always interesting is that hourly average salary of department heads. And that's with mine averaged into that, so. Let's see, capital income and expenditures is the C section. This year also is a little skewed because it had half of a renovation. And the income, like the half the renovation project spanned into this year that you're looking at, but the gaming grant is a reimbursement thing, and so all of that income came in this year. So it looks like we got 65,000, but only spent 30,000 of it. That wasn't the case overall, so all of that did get applied. It was deposited shortly into the beginning of July, so kind of ignore that. You don't have to scratch your head over that one. That section was strictly capital expenditures also, no operating in that. And then the D section, state income received was up 1,059, so that had increased a little bit. When you look at D12, that 6,848, that is what our foundation contributed to operating expenses. And that was up 2,357. They also, I think this fell before the cutoff line, they contributed $20,000 to the renovation. I think that fell in the previous year. The actual check writing. Our operating expenditures overall were up 4,150. And then to figure out where that happened, you can look at the D section. Total salaries and wage expenditures before deductions was up 2,629, so there's about half of that increase. Everything else was, there's no big changes anywhere along there. You can, you know, just like I said, look and see what the numbers are. see if you have any questions about any of that. We do have, we're part of the Bridges ebook consortium. It's a statewide consortium for electronic materials. And so what we put into there for ebooks is $348 a year. What we put in for audiobooks is $348 per year. But then we also have what we call, it's called Bridges Advantage Program. And I put extra money into that. Just this last month, I threw another $1,000 at that. But what that does is I can go into Bridges and look and see what my specific patrons have holds on. Not who has the hold, but I can see that 3 of my patrons have a hold on the new Kristen Hanna book. And then I can go into that pot and purchase that book in an ebook or audiobook format, and it stays exclusive to our patrons for the first year of ownership.
Nice.
Yeah, and so then they are in competition. They are 40 people down the line waiting to get that book.
But you only have to buy the ones that are in demand, not everything else.
No. So they have what's available in the consortium, but then I can also direct some specifically for our use. Unfortunately, they take, it's a new John Grisham ebook, they charge me $90 for. It's ridiculous. I mean, and this is the industry, you know? We are really at their mercy. It's pretty unfair. The books might be good for 2 years. You might get a certain number of circulations. At first, they had set it at 28. Somehow they came up with, this is the number of the average library book circulations. So when you hit that time period or when you hit that amount of circulations, poof, it's gone. So you don't really own it, but it is what it is. So we do put extra into that program and can provide our specific patrons more ebooks and audiobooks, which became very popular during COVID.
Yeah.
Sure.
We do have on D36, we have Transparent Languages, which is a really good program that you can get to through our webpage. It's a great language learning program. We have Bridges, and then we also have Heritage Quest and Ancestry, and the foundation pays for both of those. And so between all of those online databases, the expenditure was $3,662. Overall total of all operating expenditures was down $13,479. You know, with that project, that's kind of, you know, wishy-washy too, but mostly that was in capital, so it didn't affect this as much. The next section is what we have in our physical library collection. And then it also has, so the number of books we have is 30,776. But then if you look at what Bridges owns, how many titles, that's another 57,638. So that means that's a really nice, huge collection that's available to our patrons to use. And then it shows the audiobooks, what we have, what Bridges has. Downloadable audio materials. And then it gets into the video materials. We do still have pretty good circulation on DVDs. You know, another thing that COVID brought on was a lot of people subscribing to Netflix and all of the video streaming services, so I thought that might go down more, but it's pretty much holding its own. So if you get way down to the bottom, total physical items held at the end of the year was 35,407. Total physical and downloadable items was 124,181. So it is nice, that consortium really gives us a lot of borrowing power for our library materials. if you haven't used it, I would recommend it. I listen to lots and lots of audiobooks because I'm just working around gardening, you know, cooking, whatever. They're just really nice to, you know, play on your phone and get through those sometimes unsavory projects, house cleaning. And we have a lot of people who are sewers, quilters. They use them very heavily, the audiobooks. The F section is circulation. Total circulation, total physical items, 16,962. That was down 1,264. Of course, we don't like to see that, but COVID, you know? Unfortunately, you can blame a lot of bad things on that. The circulation to rural residents was up, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we stayed open. We did have 6 weeks where it was curbside service before we opened the doors back up, but we never had a day that you couldn't, you know, either do curbside or come in the door. And I think we picked up some patrons from
Sure.
Waterloo and Cedar Falls during that time.
Very inventive.
The children's circulation was 7,577, and that was down a little bit, which is another one you hate to see, but, you know, people just, were going out with their kids. A lot of people. Has the circulation of the Bridges ebooks. The total use of downloaded materials, 3,375. So our patrons do use that well. Total collection use in F29, that's the combination of physical and downloadable, 22,798. And that was within 600 of what it was the year before, so, but that was also, you know, a good chunk of a COVID year, from really March to June. Interlibrary loans sent out and received. Our current number of registered users are 3,500. We have new registrations weekly, so, yeah. Yep. We have Wanda down at the electric office who's very good when they sign up their utilities at sending them to our fabulous library to come get their library cards, so she's a pretty good advertiser for us. That's helpful.
Can they sign up online or just in person?
We did set it up so they could sign on, yeah, they can do it online. We set that up when COVID started.
Interesting.
It's, yeah, it's a little cumbersome, but it works, you know, it works, so that way people could, if they didn't already have a card, they could start using our services during that time, so. I don't think anybody's requested that since things relaxed a little bit, but. Children's programs attendance, of course, that was down because the first COVID year was more good than bad. We aren't doing after-school programs yet, but we're starting back up in January.
Good.
So we'll see what kind of numbers we get there. It's, you don't know what to do. You know, you have a good week and it looks like it's all gonna turn bright and sunny, and then there's the, you know, the breakthrough cases of COVID. I had one of them. It was no walk in the park, you know? So then you don't know. I hope people take it seriously, because it's serious.
Pam and I were both breakthrough. We had both of our vaccinations back in March and April,
Yeah,
and we both got hit with it October 12th.
yep.
So
I was about the same time period. And
I
it's-
was just ready to
they're
get my
saying
booster
now,
shot.
yep,
Now I
they're
got
saying
white
now you got
days.
about 5 months on the initial,
Yeah.
from your initial shots to,
But it didn't affect me or her very much, so
yeah,
that was
I'm still fighting things.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
surprising with her
Yeah.
previous
Yeah.
condition.
Yeah.
right.
So
So
that's good.
anyway, take it seriously, it is.
Yep.
So the program attendance was down overall. I don't, you know, not so much from last year, but from the year before. The G29, the door count, 18,325. So that's still pretty good through the door traffic. Reference transactions. And you get into kind of, the in-house use of public internet computers was down. And that was down fairly drastically, but that's because people weren't coming in to use them during that time period, and that is starting to pick up again too. We're at the point now where once in a while we do have the waiting period to get on one, so that's beginning to swing back. Number of wireless sessions, 2,250. We do have Wi-Fi that you can access outside of the building if you're kind of parked near the windows. And we did have some people that took advantage of that during the time when they didn't want to be around other people. We got a grant in this last year and we added some security cameras on the outside of the building too. That kind of overlooks those areas and will kind of overlook the areas where we're putting the outdoor musical instruments, so. Library building and hours, of course, none of that's changed. Total website visits annually, that was a good one, 3,661. We try to constantly direct people there because that's where you can access all of our databases and everything. Total open hours, total square footage. They did ask several questions then about what happened during COVID. They were, you know, you always want to put yes on everything, but there was a couple of them, like your Wi-Fi access, that if you increased it, well, no, because it was already 24/7, and you can already access it inside and outside, so. So no, we didn't increase it, and we probably can't ramp it up much more than we already did even before that happened, so. I think that a lot of library staff got reassigned to different government jobs during the time their libraries were closed, interestingly enough. We do check out Wi-Fi hotspots. That started during COVID and that's been very successful. We have 4 of them and they're usually all out. Usually there's not a long waiting period, just a day or two, so it seems to be about the right amount.
How long are they allowed to keep them?
For a week.
Is there a limit on how much usage they can have while they have those for a week?
No,
It's unlimited?
yep,
Nice.
so.
Take for granted not having Wi-Fi, you know, just having it at your fingertips at home,
Yeah.
and not everyone
Does
has it.
anybody have any questions about any of this or anything else? We did order some outdoor musical instruments and they are currently in a FedEx warehouse, but I think they'll start heading our way tomorrow.
Good.
I think we're gonna be waiting till spring to put them in because they need a cement base.
Yeah.
And we have to do some locates and stuff, because they'll go into alcoves.
Yep.
What kind of instruments?
Yeah,
are
I'm
there?
curious.
One is a cavatina, which is like a big xylophone.
Yeah.
And it's the keys, the mallets are bolted to the stand, and they're colors, the keys that you play, I guess they're keys, I don't know. And then there's a music stand that will be behind it, and it has songs on it that are also color-coded, so anybody can
Interesting.
play a song. Another one is called Harmony Bells, and it's a post that comes up like this, and it's got graduated size bells on it, and they harmonize, so if you play all 3 of them, they harmonize together. And then another one is, it's a drum thing. I've seen ads for them that just pop up randomly, sometimes on Facebook. It's a round drum, and it's got different size discs kind of carved into it, and they all make different notes.
Very cool.
And everything is in the key of G, so that it will all harmonize together. So it's pretty exciting.
It's very cool.
If you've been to that park that's just across the river in Prairie du Chien, they have a big setup of them there.
Lincoln Park in Waterloo did a few things like that when they
Okay.
did their remodel too. They've got some.
Which park?
Lincoln Park downtown Waterloo.
So, any other questions?
Thanks,
Just
Mary.
on a side note,
Yeah.
are you still taking kids' outdoor furniture?
No, we were good right now.
Okay.
Yep, we're good.
On another side note, thank you for all you do. You and your staff do a
Yes, you bet.
fantastic job. We have a great, I hear people all over talking about how great the Hudson Library is, so we really appreciate
We
it.
appreciate your support, always.
And the time it took to do the survey.
And the
wow.
fact that it's just, you know, when you see, I have a great library board, I have a great staff, I'm very grateful for that, and good support from the city. Because those battles are so pointless.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
and they can be draining.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
General government, Hudson City Council maintains the right to waive the first and second readings of the ordinances presented and pass the third and final reading of the same ordinance within the same council meeting. Item A, discussion action to approve the second reading of ordinance 856, an ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Hudson, Iowa by repealing provisions pertaining to parking limited to 2 hours.
I make a motion to pass the second reading only.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did we hear anything from anybody about this at all? I didn't think you would, but I just
No.
figured it's still okay to keep
Did you do
going.
that further checking you wanted to do?
Well, I wanted to check with Dr. Voss about the, where we have the 2-hour parking, but we just observed that it's best to just leave that 2-hour parking limit right there.
Yeah, I even wondered if they
Yeah.
wanted to lower that down to like a 15-minute or something, but as long as they're okay with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
They'll ask for adjustment if they need it, I guess.
Roll call.
Wyatt,
Aye.
Buns,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Sewell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item B, discussion action to approve resolution 2851, a resolution setting a public hearing on the proposed ordinance granting an electric franchise to Mid-America Energy Company, and this will be a special meeting on December 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Buns,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Wyatt,
Aye.
Sewell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Item C, discussion action to approve resolution 2852, a resolution to approve the city council to waive and forgive cost allocations for a local Hudson business. And what this is my request for the council to approve waiving the $9,700 and some odd dollars of street covering in front of the RJ Buyers as a assistance to a local business who had a extreme disaster with a fire. Worked with Heather on this and Chrissy, and Heather did not have any issue with it, provided that we gain concurrence from the other local businesses in that area as far as they're okay with that. We have that as signed. I contacted each of those businesses, D&W, Beavers, and Tony's Plumbing, and all agreed with the city waiving that. So if I have a motion to approve,
So moved.
second,
Pick one.
discussion.
They're okay signing off that that's the only,
The one thing that they asked me to do, one of them asked me to do, is they said, once he gets fully built in, now we've already done the abatements, approved that, which he had not had in the original building because we had the city sign off. So that gets it into equal footing from that perspective. They agreed with it. The only question or the only comment raised by somebody was, when he gets moved into the building, are they correct that he will not be occupying the building he's in now under temporary usage? He has to get out of that, not carrying the business, and to then work at cleaning